Hey, welcome to the Nissan Guys podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Kamadi, and I want to thank you for listening. Or if you're watching on YouTube, we appreciate that. And, basically what I'm doing today, Cheesy's not with me today. He's at work. That usually happens. We're just so busy. It's hard to really get together, but, he feels the same way. And kind of what we want to talk about is, what you need when you're buying a car during tax season. Okay, everybody hears about tax season. Car prices, used car prices go up, they skyrocket because everybody's trying to buy a bunch of used cars for our tax season. So it makes it sometimes difficult to get a car during that time, just because prices go up, stuff like that. So basically I just want to give you tips when you go to get a car, because a lot of times people get taxes back, and they two things they really purchase, they either pay on bills or they buy cars. Okay, that's why we call it tax season in the car business. And tax season sometimes can be pretty grueling. It can be a grind, and it shouldn't be that way. And the Nissan Guys, what we try to do during tax season is just make it a lot easier for you when you're purchasing during that time. Now, if you have outstanding credit, you don't have to worry about it. Okay, now, in a way, you still have a shortage, okay, in used cars during this time, because every car lot that maybe not only has one or two cars sitting out in the front yard, or someplace where the my manager always likes to call it the little red waving flags all over the car lots. During tax season they just load up on cars, and you have to be very, very careful. Especially in the South, what you have to look for is cars who have been in either hurricane damage, which we haven't had any major hurricanes in a couple years, but the floods. Right now there's a lot of flooding going on in the South, especially Alabama, Mississippi. Tennessee just had a really bad, violent tornado go through there, and just our hearts go out to Nashville. We've been through that here in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and we want to make sure that that we just let them know that we're praying for them. So, and all the people that are affected, just not in Nashville, but there were several different storms that go through. So, definitely want to be praying for you, and my audience out there. Hopefully, you'll be praying for them too as well. As we're kind of in the beginning stages of bad weather, so we want to be alert at all times. So, with that being in mind, you're going to have hail damaged cars, you're going to have flooded cars, you're going to have people buy cars and they're going to repair them, and then they're going to end up on these lots, and you have the opportunity to buy them. And if some guy just bought a bunch of random cars and fixed them up, it's not going to show up probably on the Carfax. Okay, Carfax is just where everything's reported when service is done, whether it be body work, oil changes, engine replacements, accidents, stuff like that. So you always want to have a Carfax pulled, okay, on a used car at all times. There's no exception whatsoever. That's the first thing you do. If you try to go online and do it yourself, they're going to try to charge you $39.95 for that. Okay, now dealers pay a lot of money for this service a month. Okay, so that way when you drive up into, especially a manufacturer type like a Nissan, when you go into service, it's automatically going to transfer into their system, which is very, very important, to keep you, the buyer, aware of what's went on with that car. So that's one of the things you definitely want to do. And if you want to find out more about that information on that, just instant message me, or Facebook message me, and then I'll make sure that I get you the answers that you need for that. So when making that decision, because it's very, very important for sure. The other thing too, that during tax season, we need to talk about credit scores, and what that means for your next credit purchase, like a new vehicle. Okay, very, very important. And then the other thing is what you need to bring with you when you go into the car dealership. I always say, sometimes when you're buying a used car during tax season, it's kind of like going to the DMV. the first time you go there, you never have what you need, okay? It doesn't matter how much you prepare, but it always seems like when I go into the DMV, I never get it right. I think I finally got it right the third time with my third child, and never had to go back home and get something. So that was a first for me, and I've always tried to plan ahead. But my job, Nissan Guy's job today is to kind of help you prepare that. Tax season is going on now, so you need to watch this video for sure. And then people are going to ask about a cosigner. If you never bought a car before, that's something we need to talk about. And then, what does credit high mean? That you get all these terminologies of the business that you're, going into, and you don't know what they mean. I'm going to tell you what that means. And then everybody's going to ask you this, do I need any money down? That's one of the things that we'll talk about too. And then, you need to be aware. This is one thing that people need to be aware. I know there's sometimes you don't have a choice when buying a car. I totally get that. I know that sometimes you get backed in a corner. You got to get to work, got to get your kids to school. You got to do all these different things, and you need a car. I totally get that. But there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. And if you pick the wrong way, you're going to be paying for it for a very long time. And in the car business, I see this a lot. I see people where a car dealership, maybe a manufactured type dealership, an OEM as we call it, okay? You can't get a car from there, all right? But they do have departments, secondary departments, meaning that you have so-so credit. Maybe you went through some tough times, you built your credit back up, but you're not quite there yet. This typically ranges, between somebody that has like a 550 to a 600 or to a 650. It is really tough sometimes to get a car, with that credit score. And then you have credit scores that are below 550, even down into the 400s, and you have limited choices, but you do have choices, okay? And I'm going to explain that too as well. And you just don't want to make sure you don't want to lease from these shady dealerships, okay? All right, so now we're going to start back kind of at the top and talking about credit scores, okay? Credit scores are something that to me is not fair now, but banks, basically these are put in place to protect banks and to protect you from being able to buy stuff that you can't afford, maybe, okay? Maybe you've went through some hard times. We all have been there. I know I've been there, and that's why I like talking about it. I don't mind sharing the experiences that I had if it helps somebody else. So, that's my job, is to help somebody else during a time of need, and it can be very scary and very lonely place. But when your credit, you definitely need to sign up to some type of service. Some people go to the free services like Credit Karma. Credit Karma is fine, but it can be a 40-point swing either way, okay? It's just really a service that when something hits your credit, you can go back and you can check it out and keep an eye on your credit, okay? But it's not a true credit score. It's just kind of something to lead you by, something that you can always be aware of. And you can get that app on your phone, your iPad. You can log in on the desktop and get that information there, and that's fine too. If that's your only means of checking your credit, then do it, because you need to monitor your credit, okay? Because there's so much fraud out there, especially during this time of year, people getting their credit pulled left and right, and you definitely want to protect yourself of that. But when you're trying to purchase a vehicle, credit becomes very crucial, okay? So with credit, a lot of times people don't understand how it works. I don't think I know how it works. It's getting more complicated today. It's actually ties to a lot of different things. It's tied to getting insurance, okay? They actually check your credit when you buy insurance for your car. Isn't that crazy? So your rate of insurance goes up or down based off your credit score. So you've got to, that's just one thing. If you go rent a house or an apartment, you have to now get your credit score checked, okay? because they want to make sure that you're going to be reliable, right? You know, people are burning people so easy today, you know, that they have to protect themselves. So, you know, here's a crazy thing. When I came out, you know, I came out of a bad situation, you know, and I had no credit. I'm gonna be honest with you. I didn't even look at my credit. I was so scared to death, okay, because I knew it was bad. I was in the 800s, okay. Everything was going good, things were popping, and then all of a sudden it changed, okay. And you know, that happens. Things happen. It's not your fault. You know, if it is your fault, people fail every day and they get right back up. It's what you do with it, with those failures, in order to get back in the game. So you need to check your credit. So you need to get on a service, you know, like an Equifax service. Equifax is usually in the car business. That's what a lot of people use. And then the second one is Experian. Okay, TransUnion is very rarely used in the car business. Okay, when you buy a home, they take all three of them and average them, and that's your credit score. But in the car business, Equifax is the most crucial. And a lot of credit type companies like, you know, Best Buy or just all these other, you know, companies, when they check your credit, they're going to look at, most time, Equifax or Experian. Okay, so you need to make sure that your credit score is on track. For example, all right, this is why. When I went to buy my first home, okay, when I first got married, we went to the bank and we were all excited, but we didn't, you know, and my wife had some credit established, you know, her father helped with that. And I had hardly any credit established, okay, because, you know, I just didn't have anything, okay. So when I went to the bank, they're like, oh yeah, you know, we can approve you. Well, what I found out, but they said, here, one problem. You already own a house. Why are you here for a second house? I'm like, I rent. I don't own a house. So after we figured all that out, what had happened, because my name is similar to my dad's name, his house would have been in my name. Now, in that case, it actually helped me because my dad paid his bills on time, and you know, I was already in the 750s, and I'm like, wow, you know, I haven't even established so much. So, you know, but I had to get that off my credit, you know, in order to, you know, purchase my first house. So when you go buy a car, I always tell people, sometimes it's harder to buy a house or a car versus a house, okay? Because a house, you know, equity builds up over time, you know, where cars depreciate, you know, a lot faster over time. So, you know, there's a lot of things that are involved. You know, the life of a house is a whole lot longer than a life of a car, okay? And what I mean by that is, you know, usually on, you know, if you go to a Nissan or you go to a Chevy dealership or you go to all these different dealerships, they basically, the car has a shelf life of from 0 to 100,000 miles, okay? That's the normal shelf life, because there's so much tied to, you know, our reputation, that we have to be very careful, you know, because we don't want to sell a car that has 100,000 miles on it and we didn't even know it had a transmission issue or it was leaking oil. Maybe the customer covered it up, you know, didn't tell us or whatever it was. So that becomes an issue, okay? So, you know, you have to make sure you protect yourself from that. So what we do is, you know, we wholesale those. So they show up on those, you know, flag waving places, and then people buy them, and then they break down, they can't pay for them, and they say, look, I ain't paying for a broken down car, and then their credit is tanks. Their credit tanks, because just because the car don't run, you signed a contract that said that you will pay for this car, okay? If you wanted it to run longer, you should have bought an extended warranty. That's what a lot of them are going to tell you, okay? And look, remember what I told you, the car has a shelf life, right? 0 to 100,000 miles. So keep that in mind when you're buying a car and you're paying this $400 or $500 payment on something that has, you know, 80, 90, 100,000 miles on it. Are you looking long term, or are you just looking to, you know, solve a short-term problem? So you got to protect yourself, and with your credit will keep you out of those situations if you monitor it correctly, okay? And to monitor correctly, you just need to get into a service. Sometimes you have to pay a $9.90 fee or $19.95 fee, okay? And just go in and look at your report. It'll have alarms on it. If something goes on, you'll be notified by your phone or by email, and then you can correct the problem. So If somebody opens an account in California and you're in Alabama, you can fight for that, and sometimes it takes time. Okay, so your credit score is very, very important. It's going to be tied to your car insurance. It's going to be tied to buying a car. It's going to be tied to renting your home or to buying a home. All these different things. So, in checking account, if you want to open a checking account, you have to have decent credit, okay? Because they don't want somebody bouncing checks, and that's just the way the banks are. Sometimes it's not fair, because maybe something bad happened to you and you got to build up. But if I didn't know somebody that knew somebody at the bank, I wouldn't even got a debit card. That's how serious it can be. So ignoring your credit is a bad thing to do. All right, so the next thing is, do I need a cosigner? Okay, because a lot of times, if you've never bought a car before, so let's say that you bought a car, you're trying to buy a car, you're in the dealership, and you're 25 years old, or maybe you're 45 years old, okay, and you've never bought a car in your life, and your credit high, okay, that's another thing, meaning the highest thing that you had purchased on credit, okay, it stores that in the credit report. So if you buy a house, let's say you get a credit card with a $300 credit high, on the report it's going to say 0 to 300. Okay, it's going to say 0 to 300, and 300, 0 meaning no credit, 300 meaning your highest credit. Okay, so then you go to buy a car. So now your car becomes your high credit. So maybe it's $5,000. Okay, so let's fast forward 2 or 3 years down the road. You've got a different job, your family's grown, you need an SUV or you need a bigger car, and you go to buy and they pull your credit, and let's say you're 700 now, but your credit high is 500. And you've only had their credit maybe for a year, 2 years at the most. And they're going to say, come back in your office and they're going to say, well, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I've got some great news. We can get you done on a new car, but I'm going to need a cosigner. You're going to need somebody that has bought a car with some higher credit, and you're probably going to be needing some money down, okay? And you're going to go, I thought I bought a car, because you only have a $5,000 high. Now you're trying to get a $25,000 car. That creates a problem. And basically it's up to the car dealer to work that problem out with the bank, but the bank is really holding to their guns. That happens a lot. So sometimes you're going to be required to have a cosigner, okay? And it doesn't matter if you're 25 years old or if you're 45 years old. It doesn't matter. You're probably going to need a cosigner, okay, if you've never bought a car before or your credit high is real low. So keep that in mind. So have a backup plan before you go in there, okay? You're like, well, Aaron, okay, but tell me what I got to have when I go in there, okay? I'm talking to the people with bad credit. I'm talking to people that maybe don't have any credit. Okay, right now is who I'm talking to. Okay, if you got a 750, this is probably not for you. You probably don't need to even listen any further than this. Okay, but so what do I need? Well, here's what you're going to need. I'm going to need basically your check stub. Okay, your current check stub. So your latest check stub, the last one that you got from your employer. And it's going to need to be a real check stub. What I mean by that, it can't be a print off, that maybe they give you, but I need a check stub that shows the name of the employer with the address and phone number on there, so that the credit companies or the people who are loaning you the money can check that company, make sure it's real. There's some type of system they got that they can put it in there and it checks your employment. And then you're going to need a utility bill that's in your name. Now here becomes a problem sometimes with this. The problem usually is this. I live with my mom or dad, I'm 25 years old, and I don't have any bills in my name. That becomes a problem, okay? The next thing you would need to make sure that would fix that problem is a cosigner, or you would need like a bank statement that has your name going to the address that you're living at with your mom and dad. Okay, so if you're living with a relative or anybody, you need to make sure that you have a bill, a utility bill, or a bank statement okay? The original bank statement that you get in the mail, we just need the front copy with your name and the address that you're living at that particular time, because they will cross-reference that, okay? So you got to have that. And then just to make sure that everything's covered, you're going to have full coverage insurance. If you don't have that, most dealerships know people that provide insurance for these type of loans. So don't freak out about that. They will make sure that you get insurance too as well. Okay, so you're going to need your check stub, your latest check stub. You're going to need a utility bill that's in your name at the address that you're living at and that you're applying at that dealership at that time. Or you're going to need a bank statement. Okay, the bank statement is probably the best thing to have because it shows that you're a responsible person, that you have a checking account, and it's going to that address. And so if you move, okay, so if you move around a lot, you need to make sure that you go to the bank when you go to utility companies and you change your addresses. Okay, that's very, very important. You got to make sure that you change your address. Okay, otherwise it'll become an issue for you, and they'll deny you, and it'll be hard because that bank has to verify. Look, banks are looking for ways to get out. If you give them a reason to bail, they're going to bail quickly on you. Okay, so you need to be able to make sure you back that stuff up for sure. What I'm saying is, if you fill out an online application or you put down, I make $25,000 a year, you need to be able to prove that you make $25,000 a year. Okay, so keep that in mind too when you're going. So that's really the most important stuff to do. And then you're going to have to, the car you choose. Well, Aaron, I want a certain car, man. I don't want some old car with X amount of miles on it. I want a brand new car. There are some times that we can do that. There's sometimes we can't. Sometimes the old saying is, you have to crawl before you walk. Okay, walk before you run. That's just it. When I lost basically everything that I had, and I had to start over, I had to get an 88,000 mile Chrysler Sebring. It was white. It was the best looking car on the lot. And be honest with you, it was a blessing because the car is still running today. That I think we just keep passing it on to people and family members, and they keep passing it on because it was such a blessing for us. We wanted to make sure we passed it on. It made a blessing for them, and I think when we give it away, it had like 130,000 miles on it. So we were very fortunate to get a loan. And I honestly, I was scared to death. I would have paid anything just to get the car, as long as I had that money in my wallet. And but I also wanted to use that as a learning experience too, not to ever get myself in that situation. So that's why I like talking about it and telling other people, because it helps you. So if you're in that situation right now, just let you know I can help. Cheesy can help at the Nissan Guys. You need to find a good car salesperson that will not only just sell you something at the time of need, because we're problem solvers. That's what salespeople are. We're not evil people. We're not out to get your money. Do we get paid decent? Yeah, we get paid decent, but so do so does other people. And we just like helping people. It's not about the money all the time, okay? It's about helping people get what they want, what they need at that time. But just make sure you do it the right way. Now, one of the things that I want you to be aware of, and I want you to be careful of, is these leasing companies, these leasing dealerships, okay? I'm talking about the flag-waving places, all right? And they lease used cars, all right? I can't say names. I don't want anything out there on me. But you need to be very, very careful, okay? And you need to read the fine print, because when you buy these, and they have 80,000 miles, 100,000 miles on it, they're probably not going to last the term of the loan. Okay, remember to do the Carfax, do all that. If it's your last option, do this. Okay, if it's your last option, because you're going to be stuck with that company for as long as you own that car. And if you don't, if something happens to it, something breaks down, and the warranty's out, they're not going to care. You bought it, you signed all the contracts, You did everything. And I'm talking in general about any car that you buy. That's why you got to be very careful. Okay, I'm not just talking about these leasing car companies that lease used cars. I'm talking about everybody, especially the places, that load up on cars. They might have had 10 cars in the parking lot, and now they got 150. They're out for this time of year, so you need to be very, very careful when buying that. A lot of times, here's what happens. You lease a car, it breaks down, you still have to pay for it. So you have to pay to get it fixed if it's out of warranty. Now you're sinking more money into it. You're overpaying anyway. And then if you go to trade it in, this is where we're getting a lot of problems, a lot of complaints about this particular company that I can't mention. But what happens is, for example, when you sign the contract, read the fine print. Just don't sign your name, because down at the bottom it'll say $3,000 balloon payment is basically what it is at the end of the loan. Okay, so what they're doing is it's a fee to allow you to get in this car and lease it. Okay, it's their profit, and they're going to fight for that profit. And so when you go to trade the car in, let's say you owe $5,000 on it, they're going to add another $3,000 on to that. So when you go to trade the car, most of the time it's not worth the trade-in amount, and so now you're upside down. Now you're bringing a problem to the next new car deal that you're getting ready to do. And this thing is just nagging you. It's just a poke in the side every time that you go to try to do something. So make sure you protect yourself, read the fine print. If you got any questions, please reach out to Aaron or Cheesy at the Nissan Guys. You can email me at Aaron, Aaron, at nissanguys.com, or Cheesy, the IE on the end, at nissanguys.com if you have any questions, because we're here for you. You can also contact us on Facebook, Instagram, all the social media sites. We're on Twitter too as well, YouTube. So hope you guys enjoyed our show today, and hopefully this will help you when you go to buy your next new car. Talk to you soon.